Yo guys, it's slyroh. You already know that today I'm going to be ranking all of the Lies of P bosses. I'm finally getting around to do this ranking after finishing my first playthrough a couple weeks back. And this is a game that I absolutely love, especially having some time to sit with it and reflect on my experience. I really did love this game and a lot of the bosses that it brought to the table. So I'm going to go ahead and just rank all of the bosses that I fought. This is going to be based off of my one-time playthrough. I have started a second playthrough of my own, but I didn't really get that far, and I'm not going to take any of it into consideration at this time. So this is all just off of one-time playing. This could be a list that changes if I, get better at the game and experiment with different builds and all that, and play some of these bosses more. But off of my one time, this is just going to be from my least favorite to my favorite. This isn't going to be like easiest to hardest or anything like that. But I just really want to talk about the boss of this game because this game is awesome and I like doing rankings and stuff. And yeah, let's go ahead and just get my perspective on some of these bosses here. Let me know some of your thoughts and if you enjoy videos like this, because I would like to make a lot more of these, and your likes and comments and all that goes a long way for providing motivation for me to keep making more. With all of that out of the way, let's go ahead and hop into this list, though I do need to point out that there are two bosses that are not going to show up on this list, which is the Black Cat as well as the Atoned. Those are bosses. The Atoned I just completely missed. I didn't even know that was a boss until afterwards. And the Black Cat, I had some of the golden fruit on me that I gave, so I did not fight either of those, so they will not be on this list. So to my count, there are 24 bosses that I'm ranking, because I'm ranking every single unique encounter with an enemy that has a health bar and a name at the bottom of the screen. That's what I count as a boss, and that is what I'm including for this ranking. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get into it. Starting with number 24, my least favorite fight of the entire game is the eldest of the Black Rabbit Brotherhood. This is the first fight that you fight him in. It's mostly a 1v1, but during the fight, all of his siblings and whatnot come out and also just sort to annoy you. And I really did not enjoy this fight. I think the eldest has like so much speed despite his like big massive like frame. Some of the combos are kind of crazy, and especially like that's still a little earlier in the game, where I just have less tools at my disposal to really deal with that sort of stuff. And I just did not really appreciate this gang fight. It just felt like it was too easy to get attacked by the eldest while you were dealing with some of the siblings that were attacking you. The siblings that were attacking you, it's also not like they went down super easily. Like, they took so many hits, and it was just really hard to dodge all the combos. I feel like it didn't gel well, and I really did not like this fight, and I'm not sure if I will like this fight. This was the first one where even though I like used a Spectre, it still took me multiple times because just having a Spectre wasn't enough. I had to just do so much to win this fight, and I didn't really have that good of a time doing it. Coming in at number 23 is my least favorite of the Hunter fights, and that is the Robber Weasel. This might have gone differently if I knew about the existence of that merchant that sells all of the like busted consumables and throwables and stuff that you can throw, but I didn't have that, and I really had a hard time with this fight. It was like it wasn't even that hard, but I would just get caught up in a couple of weird combos, and then I would get taunted by just the annoying voice lines, and it was a fight that I knew I should not be getting stuck on, but I was, and that just infuriated me even more. If I ever fight this fight again in the future, I'll probably just stock up on throwables and just like end this fight in like 10 seconds and it'll be fine. But because I didn't do that in my first time playthrough and my experience was just so negative, it almost like made me rage quit. I think I got madder at this fight than I did at any other point in Lies of P. It's ridiculous. I hated this Robber Weasel, and I wish I would never have to hear that stupid voice again. Coming in at number 22 is the Survivor, one of the first Hunter fights that I found right before taking on King's Flame Fuoco in that area. So it's still very early on in the game, and what really sucked about this fight was just the amount of combos back to back. I guess I should bring up that I'm not the best at the deflections and the timing with the parrying and all that. And when somebody is doing like a 9-hit combo on you, if you just try to dodge some of them and they get hit by the other 6, or if you just can't time it right, it's just going to be a bad time. And this room is very cramped. It's still early in the game where there's not a whole lot of tools at your disposal and weapons in your arsenal, and I just really did not have a fun time with this fight. This is the first fight of the game where I really just did not like, and I think on repeat playthroughs it's probably fine, probably not that bad, but for my first experience with it, I really did not enjoy it. Coming in at number 21 is the Puppet of the Future duo, the duo fight in the swamp, because this is worse than the first encounter with the Puppet of the Future, because you have those cannonballs or whatever being shot at you like while you're trying to deal with this like giant robot thing. And I mean, generally you're not fighting both of them at the same time, but I'm still counting this as sort of like a duo fight because I mean you can sort of aggro them at the same time, or you can do them like one by one. I guess technically you could run past them, get the whole way up around, take out the cannon thing, and then you can just fight both of them. But also, I don't really love the Puppet of the Future fight in general. Like, it's fine, but it is kind of slow and boring a little bit. So having to just I took one out and then took the other one out, all while trying to not get shot by cannon fire, was a little bit rough. I mean, it is nice that you can get the puppets hit by the cannon fire, which kind of helps speed up the process. It is neat, but I don't know, it wasn't like my favorite, but like we're getting to the part of the list where it's like I don't have active dislike for these. It's just like, it was kind of boring, not my favorite. It is what it is. You know, that's about all my feelings on that one. Coming in at number 20 is going to be the Mad Donkey, and this fight is just hilariously easy. I mean, this comes after the initial Parade Master fight. I don't think there's any other fights after or before you fight the Mad Donkey, but like it's just so incredibly easy. He attacks so slow, he doesn't do that much damage, and with just a little bit of experience in these types of games, or even getting yourself familiar with the game's mechanics up to this point, it's just like, this is kind of a pushover, which is like fine, but it's just not something that I'm like looking forward to reliving, but it isn't like offensive in any way. I'm fine with an early boss just being easy. It is what it is. But it also is not like super notable in any other sort of way, other than the fact that you then get the donkey mask for killing him, which I was rocking for like most of my playthrough, because I mean that fit is just like so fresh. Like, what do you want? At number 19, I have the Mad Clown Puppet, and this is another one that I absolutely hated for a while. When I first encountered him, I mean, you have like the rolling ball coming down the hill, and then as you get up to this Mad Clown Puppet, you have the stupid enemies on each side that are like throwing bombs at you, not to mention the other enemies that are like coming after you with like flamethrowers and stuff. There's just a lot of stuff, and then once you get past all that, or even in the middle of all that, this Mad Clown Puppet is coming after you, and he's got some, you know, combos that is not great, hard to deal with, and it's just kind of annoying, and then the boss run back is bad. But the reason that it's not lower is because then I discovered that you can just run past the boss and get the Stargazer right behind him, and then you can end up in an actual just 1v1 without having to deal with all the side enemies, and that makes this a more manageable fight. I think the problem with the Mad Clown Puppet is once you figure out what you need to do and how to, like, you know, dodge the attacks and all that, it kind of just becomes a slow, tedious process because there's not a ton of openings, and you know, you can't get too greedy with the openings. So I think it's kind of satisfying to figure out like when you can attack, when you can't, but also there was some times where it's just like, I know this isn't a window to attack and I just need to dodge or deflect, and it just kind of went on for longer than I would have liked. So it's a fine fight, and I think on repeat playthroughs, like, I might be able to do it a little bit faster, but it just kind of felt slow and boring, more so than like satisfying, for the most part, even though being able to figure out a couple of the moves was kind of satisfying. But it wasn't my favorite, and it would have definitely been lower if there was not a Stargazer behind this boss. At number 18 is going to be the first Puppet of the Future fight. I fought this with the poison still in. I know that you can drain the poison and then fight the Puppet of the Future without having to worry about the poison floor, but I didn't know that at the time, and I just kind of went for it. And I think that kind of adds to why I did like this fight, because with the time pressure of the poison going to eventually kill you, it's kind of like a nice battle of like just beating the puppet like faster than you can die to the poison. And I thought that was like kind of a nice little dance with that, and it wasn't that bad. I don't know if at that point in the game it was just took less time than when the dual fight came around, but it did not take that long. It was kind of fun to sort of beat him up before the poison killed me. The moves are pretty easy to read and easy to dodge for the most part, and yeah, not a bad fight at all. Coming in at number 17 is going to be the Black Rabbit Brotherhood. So this is a rematch against the Black Rabbit Brotherhood, but instead of having to fight the big guy at first and then like having the little minions come out at you, this one starts with the three siblings just like attacking you at first. And I think that those three actually work with each other pretty well. I generally found that only one of them was really aggressively attacking you at one time. The other two would generally stand back, and then sometimes if you got too close, like maybe the other ones would start attacking you and it would switch off. It wouldn't just be like one aggroing, it would kind of change, but I felt like it was pretty easy to sort of balance between like who was attacking and who wasn't, and for a gang fight like that, I think that's how it should be. And then obviously once two of them is killed, or whatever, however it works, then the eldest gets summoned again. And while, I mean, he is still really tough, just like it was the first time, it has a couple of extra moves. At this point of the game, I had a lot more, you know, stats and tools and weapons at my disposal, because it's more towards the end game, so therefore it felt a lot more manageable to beat. You also can put yourself in a position to take out all the siblings before the eldest is really attacking you, and then it's kind of like a 1v1. And the 1v1, again, at the end of the game with more tools in my disposal, just felt a little bit better than the initial fight. So I actually did kind of like this fight. It's still not my absolute favorite, but it is one that is less offensive than the first match, and I would rather this one like every day of the week. Coming in at number 16 is going to be Fallen Archbishop Andreas, and this is a fight that I just don't have strong memories about. I got through the first phase on my first try with like almost no issues, and then just got bodied in the second phase, and then on all my subsequent rematches I just like couldn't get back to that point. I don't know why. I was having trouble like dodging certain attacks and whatnot, and I think I just kind of got more annoyed than anything, because I felt like I should have been dodging, and I would get hit on some attacks that I thought that I should have been able to dodge, and stuff like that would just happen over and over again. So, I don't know, I feel like now that I'm better at the game, maybe in rematches it would be a little bit better, but I didn't have, like, strong positive feelings once I beat this boss. I believe this is also the first, like, two-phase boss, which is, like, oh gosh, I mean, this game has a lot of them, and I don't know if this one was, like, done the best, but it was one that existed, and it was fine. I don't think it was offensive. I don't think it's, like, impossible to expect to be able to beat him. It's not, like, the hardest thing ever, but it was hard enough to be annoying without, like, giving the same satisfaction as some of the other bosses that are like higher up on this list. That might just be a me thing, but I don't know, it just wasn't my favorite. Coming in at number 15 is going to start another string of hunter enemies, as number 15 is the Owl Doctor. The Owl Doctor is basically the same thing as the Survivor, I just didn't struggle as much. I don't know if it's because it was later in the game. I also had like a fun thing of being really close to death and then dealing a lot of damage without getting hit to cinch my win, which was very satisfying, but I don't really think that it's that much different than the Survivor fight, but because I won first try instead of losing like 5 times, I had a better experience. I mean, that's literally all this comes down to, is I had a better experience. I don't know if it was that much different, but I thought it was a fine enough fight, even though this one was also in a cramped room, but you at least had like the little pillar in the room I was able to use to sort of dodge from like some attacks, so I think that was also helpful too. At number 14 is the Red Fox. Even though I did not fight the Black Cat, I did end up having to fight the Red Fox because I just didn't happen to have any golden fruit on me. So, whoops, that was my bad. I would have avoided this fight, but I didn't. And this is one that I just beat first try. It was pretty fun, nothing too annoying. And, you know, it doesn't really super stand out in, like, the arena or anything, but, yeah, this was a fight that was just perfectly fine for where it is. It was a pretty easy victory for when it was. And I got through it, and that's about all I have to say. I think it works for a middle of the list, because I don't have anything super overly negative or positive to say about it. It's just, it was there. And then at number 13 is the White Lady. I really just like the boss arena as well as the White Lady's design. And, like, I feel like I remember more, like, the specific, like, sword weapon that she was using, and some of the attacks there. This was a fun fight. I liked it, you know. And I think it just stands out amongst the others because of its, like, sort of more unique-ish boss arena. But it's still just like a hunter fight, you know. It was like a nice little dance. I feel like I was doing decent damage. She would do decent damage to me. And it was just like a fun 1v1 that I got through and went past from there. So, I mean, solid fight. I really have no complaints about it. At number 12, I have the Green Monster of the Swamp. This is a fight that I could see actually going up in my rankings on repeat playthroughs, but there was like 1 or 2 attacks that I felt it was kind of hard to deflect or dodge based on like the windup. Also, when it like goes into the ground, I could not get a consistent dodge timing on when it jumps out of the ground at you. I was able to dodge a couple times, but then when I tried to replicate it, sometimes I would still get hit. Sometimes the attacks would come out fast. Maybe I was just being too aggressive. But, you know, it wasn't really my favorite. I think the second phase was good. There was just a lot of dealing with, like, the poison effect and whatnot, and just having to deal with that on top of the aggressive nature of the second phase. It was definitely pretty difficult for me, but it doesn't stand out in the same way as some of the higher-up bosses, but we're definitely getting to the part of the list where, like, everything from here on out is, like, really good, and I definitely don't have really much of a problem with any of the bosses that I have left to talk about. And this one is just the unfortunate one of being the first one that I'm talking about from this sort of section. But I do think it's a pretty solid fight. It's just not my favorite amongst the ones that we have left to talk about. Coming in at number 11 is the Walker of Illusions. And I thought this fight was pretty fun. I liked the little room that it's in, and then the attacks were fine. It was pretty easily beatable, but I did like the sort of gimmick of it making a clone and then you having to like deal with that. I feel like it worked really well, but it was pretty simple. I like just kind of climbing the ladder, and then I don't know, just something about the presentation when you first walk into that room and see it. It was just like a nice little fight. It had like been a while since a fight before that. You had that whole collapsed area before you get to it, And you get to it, and it's just like, yeah, nice little fun boss fight there. I just really enjoyed it, and but I mean, it doesn't do anything like super special like some of the ones higher up, but you know, it's a solid fight that I enjoyed. Coming in at number 10 is the Door Guardian, and after coming off a recent playthrough of Demon Souls, I kind of knew what I had to do. Just, you know, attack the legs, wait for him to fall over, and then attack the head for more damage. His attacks were mostly easy to dodge. And any times that I got hit with almost more about me being impatient more than anything else. But I do like that this is sort of like the first boss that is sort of guarding like the big, you know, tower thing that you're climbing at the end. And, yeah, you just have to get through that first. And, you know, I got it on my second try. I almost got it on my first try before I was dumb. And, yeah, I mean, it's a solid fight, big enemy, pretty easy to figure out the attacks and, just get through. And, I don't know, I like it. I think it's good for where it's at. Coming in at number 9 is going to be the first boss of the game. It is the Parade Master. I think the Parade Master is one of the best first bosses in video games. I think it does a fantastic job of introducing the mechanics that you're going to need to be good at to beat bosses. This is one that I said I wouldn't use it to affect my ranking, but I did do a second playthrough, and it was so much easier once you're able to apply the knowledge of like later fights back into the Parade Master. It becomes like a pretty easy fight because, you know, it only has a couple of attacks. Its windups are pretty slow, but that first time that you encounter it, I mean, it can be pretty difficult. You got to learn, you know, your parry deflections, when to dodge, you know, the balancing between when to dodge versus when to deflect, you know, Fable Arts, all that sort of stuff. And I feel like just kind of using them all together in conjunction is really satisfying when you first beat this boss. And I just think it's a great tool for teaching you all of the things that you're going to need to know for future harder boss fights, and it does a great job at that. But, I mean, we're getting to the part of the list where I really do like all of the bosses left, and so while it does a great job, it's probably not one that I go back to in my mind as like, this was amazing. It's like, no, this is great for what it was supposed to do, but obviously it's just the foundation on which bosses later in the game build upon to become even better. Such as when you fight my number 8 on this list, which is the Corrupted Parade Master. You go back to the hotel, and before you can get in, you have to get through the Parade Master yet again, but this time there's extra corruption attached, and I feel like it was the Parade Master with a few extra things added on, and it was sort of not really like a test of knowledge or whatever, but it had some of the same attacks, so it was like familiar in a way, but then it, you know, summoned like the little enemy that would come after you. It had extra corruption stuff that you had to dodge around, and I don't know, I found this fight fun. I beat it first try, so it was like a nice, satisfying way to be like, yeah, look how far I've come. You know, I didn't get stuck on the Parade Master. I didn't get stuck on the Parade Master the first time, but I do think it took me a couple of times to beat the first one. So it was just really nice and satisfying to beat him, and then get back into the hotel to progress the story. So this is a fight that I really liked, and it was just kind of like the Parade Master with more to it, so I figured this was a good spot for it on the list. Coming in at number 7 is Champion Victor, and Champion Victor is kind of like the Door Guardian to me, where it's just like a sort of big enemy, where I found a lot of the attacks pretty easy to dodge, and I was able to beat it first try. But I felt definitely a bigger sense of accomplishment from Champion Victor, because I just think that the health bar was bigger, the moves were a little bit faster, those sort of like almost like wrestling moves that he sort of pulled out was really cool. The presentation was great, the big arena. It really just felt like a big fighting match, so the presentation was definitely a lot better. But this is just another sort of like bigger enemy that I personally didn't really struggle all that much with, which was like surprising because I struggled on so much of this game. But I think that really just helps elevate this in my mind to a fight where I was just like, man, this was really fun. Not too hard, something that I just got through, and it was, you know, satisfying to beat. So yeah, Champion Victor, I think number 7 is a good spot. Coming in at number 6 is Simon Manus, the Awakened God, the quote-unquote final boss of the game. I mean, there's one that comes after it, but this is the sort of big bad that as you've been leading up to, preparing yourself to fight, I guess. And this is kind of split into 2 parts, because I feel like the first phase, you know, very slow, doesn't do a ton of damage, the attacks are mostly easy to dodge, especially after you've done it a couple times, and it's pretty fun and satisfying. The presentation is really good. You know, he sort of contorts himself into this like monster, you know, kind of just letting too much power go to his head, yada yada yada. And then you transition to the second phase, and it's kind of like an opposite problem, where it's just like he moves around so fast, like his attacks do so much. He's got so many attacks that just attack from wide range. He's got like the thing that comes from the sky that just like AoEs like half the battlefield. It can be a bit much, and sometimes I think it's a bit too much. But I feel like once you put them together, it kind of works itself out, whereas like the first phase is like so easy, and then the second phase is like so hard. But they sort of balance out, where it's just like, it's not too bad, but I do find some of the attacks in the second phase to be almost impossible to like dodge or get away from or parry. It's probably not, but at least for me, it felt like it. So I think it went a bit overboard, but I still love the presentation of this fight, and the attacks, I think, look so cool. The battlefield, really great, and I mean, it's just the sort of finality to like the story of the game outside the actual like finale with Geppetto and all that. But before that, I mean, I think it works as like a really, really nice sort of final boss to conquer in that way. And I think it's just a good end cap to the game. And yeah, I just really, really liked the fight overall. But then that brings us to number 5, which is going to be the Nameless Puppet, the actual final boss of the game. If you refuse to offer your soul or whatever to Geppetto, you then have to fight this Nameless Puppet. And I mean, this is really just a test of all of your knowledge of fighting other humanoids throughout the whole game put to the extreme, because the Nameless Puppet is so aggressive, it hits hard, and you really just need to play this so well. It's hard to do this without like getting some deflect parries in, which I mean I'm not great at, but I mean I had to try and get some and use a lot of strategies. This was a difficult fight, but it was memorable, and it was very satisfying to beat in the end. And so I couldn't leave it too low, even if I did get a little frustrated. I was so like ready to be done with the game because I just wanted that sense of accomplishment, and this was the last obstacle for me doing that. But I got through it, I did it, and I'm satisfied. And definitely looking back, there's really nothing that this boss does wrong, but I just like the ones above it a little bit more. Coming in at number 4 is going to be King's Flame Fuoco, which probably in the moment I would not have thought would have ended up this high, but definitely reflecting on the fight and all of the things that it brought, I just have really fond memories. I really like the sort of giant metal enemy clanging around, rushing at you, spewing fire everywhere. I just really think that the attacks were not ridiculous. I was able to figure out about the fire spewing on the arena and just being able to like run away. The game gives you plenty of time for that. First dealing with the overheat, or whatever that status effect is called, was a bit much at first, but once you sort of learn how to get around that, I think it was really satisfying. It was one of those that like I was satisfied to sort of figure out, learn the boss patterns, figure out what I can do, what I can't do, what I can get away with, and then eventually just win. It's a fight that I would definitely be looking forward to playing again, and I just think it's better in my mind in hindsight because of the big boss arena, the boss design, and I just think it's just so cool in so many different ways that I really, really appreciate it a lot, and it's definitely one of my favorite fights. Coming in at number 3 is going to be Laxasia the Complete, and this was the hardest fight in the game by far. This fight is insane. The first fight I think is really, really cool, and it's kind of funny because Laxasia also has like a ridiculous like 10 plus hit combo, but it's the same like every single time, and you know, you kind of start to learn like what to look for. It's not impossible by any means, and I did find phase 1 to be pretty fun. I think phase 2 was a bit much, especially with the weapons that I was using. She would like jump around to an extent where it just made it almost impossible to hit her and get hits in. That might not be the case if I was using a lighter weapon. I'm not entirely sure. I'd have to, you know, worry about that on repeat playthroughs and try and experiment with that. But even with that, I mean, I always have just sort of like a soft spot for like lightning and thunder like powers, and so the presentation is so cool. The boss arena is just fantastic, and even though it was kind of annoying to actually get hits in, the satisfaction from beating this boss was like almost surpassed by like nothing else. I really did enjoy this fight, even if I was kind of annoyed at some of the second phase. For the most part, it's not, outside of the attack where she like comes from the sky at you and gives you like half a second to try and deflect it and get like the perfect guard off. Outside of that attack, everything else is like perfectly reasonable. That one is the only one that where I'm just like, okay, there's really not much you can do about that. And finding windows to heal in this fight is also kind of insane. It's not the easiest, but yeah, I think this is the hardest fight in the game by far, and I respect it for that, and I just really think that it is a great presentation, and the fight is also just pretty fun for the most part. Speaking of my affinity for electric powers and electric enemies, my number 2 is the Scrapped Watchman, who also uses a whole bunch of electricity to power up some of his attacks, and I really like the design of this boss. I mean, this is so cool. It looks creepy in a great way. The attacks are not that hard to sort of figure out, but they are not the easiest at the same time, especially for how early in the game it is. This is definitely the first boss where it's just like, once I conquered this, I was just like, oh my gosh, I can do this. It felt so satisfying. Being able to get some of the perfect guards off was incredible. Trying to dodge some of the attacks was great. just for how early in the game it was. This is like the boss that I was just like, okay, this game has something special for sure, because this is a really, really good boss. And I still look back fondly on the Scrapped Watchman fight. I don't know if that would hold up on repeat playthroughs. Maybe it's a complete pushover. I don't really know. But I'm just holding on to that feeling of the first time that I beat him, and it was just fantastic. So that is why it is my second favorite boss in the game. And having the coldest take of all time, my number one is Romeo, the King of Puppets. This is by far and away the best boss in the entire game, and one of my favorite bosses in video games, period. The introduction, first off, where it just like offers you the hand, you like smack it away, hilarious, love that. It's like something about this fight is just so incredible. I love the fight against the big metal monster, you know, like the attacks, not too bad, not like super easy, but it's satisfying to sort of learn the attack patterns, know when to dodge, when you can get your hits in, all that sort of stuff. And then you have the second phase where it's just a dance with Romeo, another humanoid enemy, and I feel like this was better than like every other Hunter fight because of just the attack that he did. He was fast, but it was like kind of easy to dodge, and I felt like the most satisfying thing was like doing like quick dodge, strike, and trying to manage my stamina while not getting hit. And then he would like do like the fire thing, and he would use fire to power up his attacks, and there was like some combos there where I kept getting hit by that. But I mean, just getting through this fight was so satisfying. In the moment, I knew, I was like, this is special. This is the thing that's going to put this game in Game of the Year contention for me. And I mean, after all this time, I still can just like talk so much about how much I love this fight. I mean, Romeo, King of Puppets, fantastic fight. One of the best fights in the game, in video games in general. This really just put every strength that Lies of P has and put it into a boss fight, and it is just my favorite by far. It was never even close. So yeah, that is going to go ahead and wrap up my boss rankings for all of the Lies of P bosses that I fought. Let me know what your opinions are on some of these bosses, if any of these surprised you, if any of these are, you know, what are your least favorites, what are your favorites, do you agree, do you disagree? Let me know all of your thoughts. And I probably don't have any other Lies of P content planned. I don't really think there's much more that I personally can do with this game. So this is going to sort of end that chapter, but this was a really fun chapter to go through. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed. If so, let me know, but I'm going to go ahead, get out of here. Make sure to subscribe and all that, and I will bring you more content and hopefully more rankings and stuff in the future as well. But yeah, I'm going to go ahead and get out of here, and I will see you all around. So till then, peace out.